Hi, I'm Jenn Drummond. Welcome to my podcast, Take a Break. Take a Break is about enhancing and preserving the greatest asset you have, you. So today I had Melinda Emerson on the podcast. She is known as the Small Business Lady. It's pretty interesting, her story and how she got to this space. And she shares knowledge all over and has courses online. She teaches at Drexel University. She is really passionate about helping small businesses stay in business and has a lot of tips that she shares. So listen along and hope you learn a lot. So you've written 2 books so far, right?
Well, so I've actually written 4 books because I wrote one book 3 times. So my
Wait,
book,
is this
Become
one
a
Fix
Boss
Your
in 12
Business?
Fix Your Business. So that was my second book.
Okay.
But Become Your Own Boss in 12 Months, my first book, is in its 3rd edition. So I've written the same book 3 times.
Wow, that's
So the
amazing.
3rd edition a year ago. Yeah, so my book, Become Your Own Boss in 12 Months, has actually been in print for 12 years, since
Has
March
it
of
really?
2010.
Wow. What
Mhm.
made you decide to publish a book in the first place?
Well, you know what? I've been an entrepreneur for 23 years, right? So I started in front of my mother's house with a lemonade stand. Kidding. But I started my business. I was just somebody with some skills and I decided to start a business. And what I realized after 7, 8 years in my business was that I had learned so many things, like the most expensive way you could possibly learn them, because you didn't know. When you don't know, you make expensive mistakes. And I was just like, um, in 2005, my husband and I got pregnant with my son. I ended up on bed rest for 6 months. And I went basically from being, I don't know, the worst workaholic you ever met to being sent home. And in 2005, Wi-Fi was not in everybody's house. That actually didn't happen until 2007. So I was just at home. That's what I was doing
Oh
at home,
man, that's terrible.
cooking my son, trying to get him here, right? So I was baking my son, and while I was at home, it was literally the first time I had ever stopped moving. Like I had gotten up on go like every day. And then finally I got a point where God was like, no, you're gonna be on stop. That's what you're gonna be on. So while I was at home, I just started taking all these notes about all of the expensive lessons I learned. And then I started thinking about all the lessons that other people in my circle had learned. And the next thing you knew, I had like 5 or 6 chapters and this incredible outline based on the advice I wish someone had given me before I started my business.
Right.
And, you know, but I was still pregnant. I had to go to the hospital, once or twice a week, getting testing done. They thought my child had a heart condition. I mean, it was crazy. So, and I was pregnant that whole year. Like my child wasn't born until December 14th of that year.
Oh
So
wow.
I got my son here. Yeah, so I spent all spring and summer pregnant. My son came, and then I had to figure out like how to be a first time mom, which probably is like this whole other nightmare that nobody kind of tells you about. So once I got my son to his first birthday without permanently maiming him in any way, then I was like, okay, let me go back to those notes I had and let me figure out how I can help more people. And mostly because there was just a lot of things going on that were crazy. So I realized when I was pregnant that I had built a business that couldn't run without me. I had made the number one mistake you make in business. Like don't build a business without process and systems so somebody else could step into your shoes. But I also didn't want to be a workaholic anymore. I was like the worst workaholic you ever met. And then I got sent home with
Yeah.
no Wi-Fi to keep working. And so that was horrible at first. And then I realized how unhealthy it was that I worked like that. And I didn't just work like that. I worked everybody who worked for me like that. Like you could call my office at 9 o'clock at night and people would answer the phone like it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Like that's how ridiculous I was. And I almost think God made me get pregnant on purpose. He was like, I have to stop her. So I know how I'm going to do it, So,
Right.
but when I was home and I got a chance to think and I got a chance to say, okay, what would I have done differently based upon what I know now? What would I have done? And it made me develop my system, my 6-step system to help people transition from having a job to starting a business. And literally, I said, okay, the first thing people need to figure out before they figure out anything else is what they want and why they want it. Because sometimes you just need to get a new job and get away from this crazy boss that you have. If you decide you want to put out your shingle and say you're open for business, I want you to clearly understand what is involved in doing that, because it's
Yeah.
not for everybody. It's not easy. And then I said, okay, after that, after you go through that and you still say you want to start a business, okay, well, then you got to figure out your financial system. You got to figure out how you're going to pay for this, because banks do not loan money to start up businesses. So what are you going to do? Because I always tell people who have savings have options, right?
Right,
And
right, right.
then
Well, cash is oxygen, right? Like cash is oxygen to the business.
everywhere cash is oxygen, right? And so then I said, okay, then we've got to think about really looking at this business idea, right? And then looking at it based on what skills do you have versus what skills do you need to run this kind of business. I don't want you to start a restaurant because you like to eat. I want you to start a restaurant because you know something about running a restaurant. And that might involve going to work part-time like you think you want to start, so that you can really understand. Franchises go out of business because people give away too many napkins, straws, and ketchup. And so people just really need to understand where the cost centers are in those kind of businesses. And then I was like, you got to figure out who your paying customer is. So many people get so excited. They are so excited to send out their invitations to their grand opening event. And if you ask them, well, who's your target customer? Well, everybody eats donuts. Everybody can use it's like, no, 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 no. No, if everybody can use it, actually nobody's going to use it. How are
Mhm.
you gonna use your marketing dollars if you don't have a target that you can specifically hit? Right. And then I was like, okay, and guess what? You still need a business plan too. I know for the last 10 years, it's been these people out here telling people they don't need business plans. And I'm like, okay, tell me this. Why would you spend more time planning your family vacation than how you're going to support yourself and your family financially? Why would you do that? You wouldn't do that, right? So
Right.
take the time to do a business plan. Do you need a 40-page manifesto? No, but do you need 10, 12 good pages that describe like what the heck your business is and who your competitors are and what your value proposition is and how you're going to build a sales operation and then how you're going to fulfill the sales once you get the sales? I mean, you need to think that stuff out. And then I'm a big fan of side hustling. I want people to start businesses while they're still working. And because it takes 12 to 18 months minimum for a business to break even. And that does not mean replacing your corporate salary. That means the business can take care of the business's bills. And so you got to figure out as much as you can on somebody else's dime as long as you can.
Mhm.
And so that was my system. And I built my book around it. And I built a whole, business and franchise around it. I mean, like that's how I became the small biz lady. How I became the small biz lady was because my book was actually written in 2008.
Okay.
But because of the market crash, my book was due like September 1st, 2008. The market crashed like September 14th. So my publisher called me up and said, listen, thank you so much for being a first time author that actually, submitted your book on time. But we don't think anyone's thinking about entrepreneurship right now. All these people losing their job, we don't think any of them are thinking about entrepreneurship. So we're going to shelf your book and we're going to bring it out in a more favorable book environment. That's
Mm.
what they told me. And I was like, well, what does that mean? Oh, we're going to bring out your book in March of 2010. This was September of 2008. Yeah, 18 months they shelved my book. And I was like, holy macaroni, Batman, what are we going to do? One of my friends at the time said, Melinda, if I were you, I would start publicizing that book like it was coming out. She said, in fact, I'd start figuring out this new social media thing that people think is going to be the next big thing in marketing. And so I was like, are you serious? She was like, I'm dead serious. She said, Bill Gates said if he had $2 up in the world, he spent $1 on PR. So I was like, All right, I got $5 left in the world. Let me find somebody that'll take 250, literally. So I called this woman who's referred to me, and she knew as much about social media as anyone could know back then. And literally, she said, I know what we're going to do. Like, she was like excited that we had 18 months. And I'm thinking, I'm talking to a crazy person on the other end of the phone. And she said, we're going to go out to Twitter and build your brand. And I remember I said to her, well, what is Twitter? Like,
Yeah,
I
right,
literally,
right, right.
I don't know what she's talking about. And so she said, no, 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 this is going to be a good thing for you. And I'm like, really? You know, because at this point, I was disgusted about everything connected to my book. Um, and she said, no, 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 this is going to be a good thing for you. So we go out to twitter.com. She's on the phone in front of her computer. I'm on the phone in front of my computer. And I put in Melinda Emerson. And then I get this notice, this name is already taken.
Wow.
Really? I mean,
Right, right, right.
know that I've met 5 other adult Melindas like in my life. My name is not common. You know what I mean? Like, it's just ridiculous that somebody. So then I was just like, okay. So we had to come up with a nickname for me, and we kicked around a couple of them, and then finally she said, well, how about Small Biz Lady? And I was like, I think I could be her.
Yeah, for sure.
And the rest is history, right? So that was like the best branding accident that ever happened to me in life.
Oh,
And
that's
it has totally
amazing.
worked.
I love it. It's so perfect. Do you consult with businesses individually then to help them through the process?
Well, I actually have 2 businesses. So I have Quintessence Group, which is my marketing consulting firm. And I actually work with Fortune 500 companies that target small business customers. But I also have SmallBizLady Enterprises, and that's where we work with individual entrepreneurs. And so I have webinars and courses, and I have an online school, Small Biz Lady University, and I have all these courses in it. And I'm actually really excited because I just partnered with Drexel University, my alma mater, and they are running 2 of my courses on their non-credit side this fall. So I'm really excited. So my brand new Become Your Own Boss 10-week course and my 6-week How to Sell and Market online course are being run through Drexel, and people can get CEU credits for taking those courses. So
Oh, wow,
I'm
that's
really, really excited.
amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So you've done a
Yeah.
really good job at this is what I love. So my podcast is called Take a Break, right? And we either take a break or like a break happens in our system. And that in that break, we have the opportunity. That's where we have the opportunity to become aware and shift and change. And so obviously the pregnancy did that for you, right? And instead of being just
Mm-hmm.
miserable at home with no Wi-Fi, you sat down and you're like, okay, well, let me just start journaling some of these things that I've learned out, which is an entrepreneur spirit from the beginning, right? Because you're just reflecting on what you've done, where you want to go, blah, 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 blah. And then look where it is today. And how do you know, like,
Yeah.
when does a Drexel University type situation show up in your world that that's something that you want to pursue?
Well, that was about intention for me. You
Okay.
know, it's funny because so my son is now in 11th grade.
Okay.
And 3 years ago, my mom said to me, she said, listen, she said, in 5 years, your son is going to be going off to college. And you need to be thinking about who you're going to be when that happens. She
Yeah.
said, where do you want to live? Are you going to get married again? Like, is there some other professional goal that you have for yourself? Because you're still going to be really young
Yeah.
when that boy goes to college. And at that time, I had always wanted to go back to school and get my MBA.
Oh, wow.
And I have to be honest with you, the reason why I didn't do it is because of this irrational fear of math and statistics that I had from undergrad, right? Like, I went to Virginia Tech undergrad, and like I have 3 Ds on my transcript, and let me tell you what they were from: calculus 1, calculus 2, and statistics, right? So I had this, like, even though I've been in business for 20 years, I still had this fear that I couldn't do it, like fear of the regression analysis coming back to haunt me. And it was so ridiculous. And I finally said, okay, I gotta do this because I knew that one of the things that I wanted to do was teach on a college level.
Oh,
But what
wow.
I found out was even if you have a best-selling book that's been in print all over the world in multiple languages, if you don't have a master's, you can't teach on the college level. Not even at community college would they take you. And I
Wow.
was like, they would not take me. And it was like, oh my God, well, I I gotta get a master's.
Right.
Okay. Well, it's got to be in business because my undergrad degree was in journalism. That was the other thing that was messing me up because I wanted to teach in business program. And they were like, okay, what is your professional training in? Oh, it's journalism. Yeah, no, ma'am, you will not. They were like, oh, no, girlfriend,
Nice.
you will not teach here, kind of thing.
Right.
And so I was like, all right, what am I going to do? So literally, I applied to B school, and everybody was sort of like, why are you doing that? Like, I had to go down there for the interview, and they were like, so tell us, small biz lady, because we know who you are. Like, people around here have read your book, so we're wondering why you're here.
Right.
And
Right.
I
Right.
said,
Right.
well, I want to teach. I was like, I want to teach. And I was told I didn't have the credentials to do that. Even though universities use my book to teach entrepreneurship around the country. That's part of the reason why my book has stayed in print,
Right.
literally. And they
Wow.
told me I've guest lectured at MIT, Penn, everywhere, but nobody would let me teach there. And I said, well, my 5-year plan is to have an opportunity to teach. And so I paid my money and I got my MBA. And it was the best thing I ever could have done because, for one, it validated so much of my work experience. Like when we were talking about stuff, I was like, oh, yeah, I consulted with Sam's Club on blah, 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 blah. Or, oh, I've been inside FedEx. Let me tell you, like I was able to be like, I knew a lot.
Right.
And
Right.
guess
Right.
what? The
Right.
number one skill to have in graduate school, you got to be able to write papers and do presentations. Like that's like half your grade all the time. So I was like, oh, that's a joke. That's yeah, I can do that in my sleep. So, and then they put you in groups. So even if it's something that's not your best skill, there's somebody that majored in finance that's in your group that can do the regression analysis for the whole group, right? You know what I mean? Or teach everybody else how to do it. And so this paper tiger I had built up for myself for 20 years, I never went and got my MBA because I thought I'm going to get destroyed in graduate school, which was absolutely not the case. I graduated with honors from Drexel MBA,
Wow.
executive MBA.
It's amazing.
So that's what happened. So it was literally my mom said to me, dude, you better get your 5-year plan going because I don't need you to fall apart when this little boy goes to college. I need you to have your own plan and some new dreams and some other stuff you're doing. And that's what made me do it. And once I had the relationships, I already had Small Biz Lady University.
Right.
And so I went to them when I graduated and said, hey, I have something that I don't think you guys teach here that I think y'all need. And so I showed them, my Become Your Own Boss book. And I during the pandemic, we developed 3 courses specifically to help people with online marketing, how to
Wow.
sell and market online, social media selling, and ultimate guide to email marketing. And they were like, yeah, we don't got nothing like that around here. I was like, yeah, I know you don't. So how about can we work something out? Can we do a partnership? And it took a while. I mean, doing a contract with a major corporation university is not an easy contract to do, but I'm so excited because we got it done, and
Woo!
it's great.
Oh,
And
that sounds
so
amazing.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited because once you get one, you can go get 10 more, right?
Right,
So
right, right,
that's
right. It's
my
that first one that's always the hardest. It's like the one that you learn things on and figure it out. And then you're like, okay, now I got this. Now I know the negotiation it's so much learning. So how do you put
oh
yourself in a situation to continue to feel comfortable being a beginner?
Well, I think that that's what entrepreneurship is all about. I mean, if you don't learn something every day, at least every week, you're not doing it right. Technology is always changing. You got to learn how to interact with different kinds of people, different kinds of communication styles. So I think the most valuable skill anyone can have is self-awareness, and really being able to recognize a weakness and try to figure out how to turn it into a strength. And I think that in business, if you're not a lifelong learner, you're in trouble, right? If you think you know everything already, please keep your job, because entrepreneurship is going to eat you alive.
Right.
And I think that's really where it comes from. I think it's like, look, I've had to learn software. I've had to learn. I mean, think about, I've been in business for 23 years. Everything has changed about business in 23 years. You used to have to buy your own server and have it in your office to do your email.
Right.
Right. I mean,
Right.
dial up is something I remember on the internet. You know what I mean? I remember that. Yeah. So it's like getting Wi-Fi and being able to communicate with anyone and having customers around the world and Zooming and getting, I mean, this is stuff that has just evolved in the last 3 to 5 years. This stuff
Right.
didn't exist. And so I have had to constantly grow and change, reinvent myself, reinvent my business model, reinvent our services so that we can be more customized to what our customer needs. Because I tell people all the time, it's not about what your customer needs today. It's about what your future need is from your customer. And can you be positioned to be there to meet their future need? Their current need, you're already too late for. And so just having that mentality, reading trade journals, just paying attention to what's going on, I think it's just something that will just make you a better person. It'll make you a better parent. It'll make you a better partner. If you are somebody that's always trying to find out, how can we do this better, or how is somebody else doing this? Because I'm a firm believer that success leaves clues everywhere. You don't have to
Right.
reinvent
Right.
you could just look at somebody doing it well and say, okay, let me find out who they help, who did they hire to help them?
Right.
Or
Right.
can
Right.
I
Right.
hire them to help me?
Right. 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 They have the winning formula. I will copy that winning formula.
All day, all day.
So do
Yeah.
you have a
So,
business group that you're involved in that kind of helps keep you in different trends or what's going on? Or what do you like give most of your credit to as you like stay ahead of things?
well, first of all, I have an amazing group of mentors and friends that jump in, jump out, give me advice. I also belong to a mastermind group of there are 5 of us, and we meet once a month for 2 hours and just bang it out. Like anybody's learned something new, learned a new tool, hired a new person. Where'd you get them? All this stuff. I also have an actual business coach that
Okay.
works with me twice a month, 2 hours a session, and she's all over me. I mean, she's in my financials, she's in my sales projection. She wants to know how many, what prospects we have on tap. I mean, she is like on top of me because she said, you told me your goal this year was this. Okay, what are you doing? Where the
Yeah.
hits at? What's going on? And so I think that you have to kind of take a team approach to it. I also try to do professional development activities. Like I am not above paying somebody for their course and going and taking it.
Hmm.
And I think if it's something I want to learn, something I want to learn quickly, I go find the best people who are doing it and I'm willing to pay for it.
Yep.
Because I just think, again, success leaves clues. So I'm all about and plus I love to funnel hack people. I love to go see people's sales process. Like I'm a big fan of just clicking on this, signing up for this, signing up for the next thing. Let me see. I want to see what their landing pages look like. I want to see what they're, what are they selling now? I'm a big fan of funnel hacking.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, right? It's fun to see how other people do it, just to see if there's a better mousetrap or whatever. So you just like get curious. And part of being curious gives you knowledge.
100%. I'm also a voracious reader.
Okay.
If my house ever, got on fire, I'd be like, save my son. And then somebody please save my library, save my books. Like I've got lots and lots of business books. Love them, love to read them. I think lots of people have put amazing things inside books and more people need to read.
Yeah.
Like I barely, rarely ever watch TV.
Yeah, I know.
I
I'm
really
the same
listen,
way.
or we that was like that's watching TV is a waste of time. I do it on the weekends to relax, but during the week I don't cut on TV.
Okay.
Mm.
Okay. Now, how did you go about finding your mentors?
I think if you have an approachable, humble spirit, mentors will find you.
Okay.
You meet somebody at a conference, engage with people. If you're really good at follow up and follow through, that ingratiates yourself to people.
Hmm.
And so I think it's just about how you show up. I try to always be grateful. I try to always be kind. Even if I'm upset,
Hmm.
I try to be constructive with it. I'm not my son is the only person I scream at, right? But everyone else,
We all have that
I will
person.
be like, look, yeah, right. We all have the person that can just be like, you know, but now my weapon is just taking keys away. It's like, oh, okay, well, you're not going there.
Yep.
And then I get the sad. But
Think
I
again.
think there's a way to be constructive. And I try to be able to receive direct feedback, but I also try to give it. When I don't have a good user experience with a client or with a client staff, I do try to let people know so
Hmm.
that they can encourage and grow people. I mean, I recently had a situation in my home, my homeowner's insurance. I had a claim, and my claims agent just was like not doing her job. Like literally, my claim didn't get resolved for like 6, 7 weeks. And it got resolved because I wrote a letter to the president of the company and overnighted it to him. I just want to let you know how your brand is being represented in the experience that I just had. And I know that this is not how you guys do business, but I just wanted to let you know that this happened and this is not resolved.
Hmm. Now, as
And
you've grown,
my
yeah,
uh,
as you've grown your business, how have you gotten constructive feedback, and how is that like? How do you respond to that?
yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I think honest feedback is a gift,
Yeah.
right? And certainly I got a lot more feedback when I was younger than now.
Right.
I can remember one of my mentors pulling me to the side and telling me that I was getting a reputation for always being late for meetings. She was like, the word on the street is you're always late. You need to fix that. And I assure you that I have. You know what I mean?
Right.
Um, And I think, a friend, emailed me the other day, hey, Melinda, I clicked on this link on IG and your Bitly link thing didn't work. I'm like, what? So I appreciate people telling me
Right.
if my slip is hanging. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want you to walk around and be like, oh, our link didn't work. Please tell me.
Right. Right. Right.
I
Right.
will,
Right.
I will, I will thank you and I will fix it, so
Yeah. No, and I
yeah.
think that's part of the entrepreneur spirit of like seeking continuous growth and knowing that anything that is presented to you is for your benefit, right? It's to
Oh,
help
yeah.
you, right?
Nobody has to give you feedback, right? And so if somebody takes the time to give you feedback, you need to at least consider it.
Right.
And in some cases, act on it. Because especially if you get advice and you don't act on it, you could burn a relationship for life,
Right.
and I think that's dangerous too. I mean, obviously you have your own mind, you're your own person, but people aren't just giving you advice just to do it. People are giving you advice. If it's a person you trust, they're giving you feedback to be helpful.
Right. Right.
You
Now, was
Sometimes helps.
entrepreneurism in your family? Like, was your mom an entrepreneur? Like, what drove you down that path to begin with? Because that's an aggressive path.
Sure, sure. No, I love to tell this story actually. So, my father was a career salesman, 30 years. He worked for Kraft Foods. And he was such a good salesman, dude. He could sell ice cream and Eskimo. He used to have a part-time job at the Sears in the electronics department. And we used to go to the mall on Saturdays just to watch my dad close people because he was that good.
That's
We would
awesome.
watch him close people, right? He was masterful. I mean, really. Now, my mom, on the other hand, was the entrepreneur. She was a stay-at-home mom until I was like 10 or 11. And she had hustles, right? She sold Tupperware, she sold copper, she sold Metaluca, she sold Avon. My mom actually even went to community college and learned how to reupholster people's furniture and was doing that, right? I mean, it was like, she framed art. I can't even tell you all the businesses she had. But the one thing that I always noticed about her businesses was that she never really made any money,
Okay.
and she didn't make any money because she was a sucker for a sob story, right?
Right.
And so she gave away more product than she sold. Yeah, and so and but that was my mother's heart, though.
Right.
That was her. She didn't necessarily do it for the money. She did it, I think, because she had 4 kids and she wanted something else to do other than raise her kids.
Right.
And I
An
get
outlet.
that. But I think between the two of them, though, they created this person that was like, oh no, I'm not going to do that, and I'm going to soak up all of this good sales skills that my daddy gave me. So, yeah, no, my favorite thing is to sell, and I love to close them. Like,
I
that's my favorite
love it.
thing. Oh, yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And then just
Yeah.
having the persistence to close them. And it sounds like you've set up systems and programs so that you can step out of the business, which is a key for any business owner to not be self-employed, but a business owner. I totally understand that.
Right, right. A
Um,
jobby. We don't need a jobby. You need a business.
yeah, right. Which is easier said than done for sure. And how
Mhm.
did you
It
like
is.
so
I mean, in the early years, it's hard because you are like a one-man band. Like before you have any money where you can like kind of start paying people. Yeah.
hmm
It's a mentality too.
hmm And what do you think drives you? Like what keeps you motivated, like and going?
You know, Nowadays in my business, my occupation is also my advocation, right? So it is my belief that God called me to be the small biz lady. Like, and that's why I am able to reach so many so far, because it is truly, I believe it is my mission to end small business failure. So all of the content I write, interviews I give, books, courses, all this stuff is really about teaching people the stuff they don't know they haven't even thought about yet,
hmm
so that they can have one more year, one more quarter of success, right? Or dodge a bullet that's coming for them. And
Right.
so those are the things that I think about, because it's really important for all of us to what we were called to do. What is our purpose?
hmm
It's not just to make, it can't just be to make money,
Right.
right? Because money is immaterial. There's all kind of people with money that kill themselves every day. And
Right.
so it's not about the money. It's about the fulfillment of the mission. It's
hmm
about having the resources to do what I want to do for my family, or for my son, or for my birthday that's coming up, right? Whatever. Like, so it's about being able to celebrate when it's time to celebrate, and not have to go work because you gotta go work. So
Right.
for me, I love empowering people, empowering women in particular,
hmm
to live their best lives. There's too many of us, um, you know, in relationships, in jobs, doing stuff where we feel super unappreciated. And I'm about, no, no. I'm about, if you don't have anybody to love you, you have to love on yourself. And that starts by doing work that fulfills you. And so I am, just really grateful that I have the opportunity to do that.
hmm And it sounds like you took the time to really sit and own your why, right? And you like to say, like, here's my purpose. And then you just reconnect to that every day when it gets hard because you remember that you're here for something bigger than you.
Oh yeah. But you know what really fuels me? Every now and again, when I just have oh man, like I do not feel like being the small business lady today, invariably somebody will send me an email, or somebody will send me a DM, or somebody will send me an amazing note on LinkedIn and
hmm
tell me how grateful they are. They saw some video or some interview, or they just took some course I had, and how much it changed them and changed their business, or how after 17 years working for somebody else, they finally got the courage to start their business. And I mean, sometimes I get these letters in different languages and I have to hit Google Translate because I can't even read the letter, right? But it's just those letters lift me up. And what they need to know is that I print out every single one of them and I have a file,
Oh,
because on days I don't feel like being a small business lady, I had to go down there and read my file. I have to
right.
remember.
And I think that's so important for all of us. I am into mountaineering right now, and I have 2 mountains left of my 7 summit quest. And there's days I don't feel like
Wow.
training or eating healthy or doing things, but then you get a letter from somebody that says, "Hey, they just walked to the mailbox instead of drove to it today," or they did like something that puts them in a better spot. You're like, "Okay, I need to do this because look what it provides others." Right? And when we learn to
Yeah.
shine and own our own light, it gives others permission to do the same.
It does. It does. And sometimes we want to hide our hurt, right? We want to hide our pain. And
Hmm.
what we don't realize is that sharing pain is freeing somebody else.
Hmm.
Sharing your pain might feel like shame, when in fact it's a testimony. And you have to have a test to have a testimony. And that's, and for a long time, I was one of those people. I never talked about, being a professional single mom, or getting separated, divorced when my child was 4, or
No.
the fact that I have a special needs child, or like all of the other crazy things that have happened to me. I never talked about any of that stuff. I just told people how to make money. I just told people how to be successful in business. And then it wasn't until, I don't know, 7, 8 years ago that I got on stage one day and I told a story.
No.
And the story that I told was, when I first got the idea and the vision to become the small biz lady, I was still married. And I went to my former husband and I said, I think I have $1 million idea. And he said, well, what is it? And I said, I think I can become America's #1 small business expert. And his response was, well, why would anybody listen to you?
Oh,
Right. Right. I told that story in a room full of women at a women's business conference, and people gasped when they
yes.
heard me say that.
Yeah.
And then there were 8 or 9 women that walked up to me after the event and told me that they were living with someone that wasn't supportive of their business, that treated them the same way my ex husband treated me, and that they were so grateful that I told that story. And that was the first time I had ever told that story in public. But I truly felt like God was like, tell it. I need you to tell it,
Right.
But see, those stories are shameful stories for me. Those stories are not stories that you would want to tell somebody
Right. Not
about.
initially, right? But that's really where we
Yeah.
connect, right? We connect where we have the broken parts or the stuff that didn't work, because all of us have
Yeah.
it. So until we own that aspect of us, you just don't get to be as authentic with the audience as much, right?
Yeah, and I think in the beginning I just thought, well, no one cares about my story. They just want to know how I can help them make money. And so that was like my mentality in
Mm-hmm.
the early days. And then finally I said, no, I think I need to stop pretending like all this is easy to do, because it really isn't.
Right.
And we have a special needs child with an intellectual disability who's struggling in school, and you don't know why, and taking them 2.5 hours to do third grade homework, and you're trying to figure out what's going on. Come to find out, my child had dyslexia. My
Oh,
child had ADHD, and I didn't get it figured out, diagnosed until he was like in 5th grade.
wow.
Yeah. And it was really, really hard. Had to get lawyers and all kinds of people involved. And and was in one of the best public school districts in suburban Philadelphia. I wasn't in no poor inner city school. No. I was in a wealthy, successful school district, and they
Wow.
couldn't serve my child. And
Wow.
so luckily I had the money to fight them.
Yep.
I had the money to hire my own neuropsychologist to find out what was going on with my son.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm so proud today,
Oh, for sure.
because now the baby has been in the right kind of school since he was in 6th grade. Now he's getting ready to go to college to major in computer science. My son is brilliant,
Yes. Yeah.
but I had to I had to fight for everything,
Yeah.
and so I think sometimes people need to know that you still have stuff that you got to fight too. You
Right.
might look great and be a national spokesperson for all this stuff and best-selling books and yeah, well, guess what? I got a jerko ex-husband like everybody else, and let me tell you about it. And
Right,
so
right, right.
I
You're
think
still
that
human, right? You can do superhuman feats, but at the end of the day, you still have the human experience, which is not all positives. I mean,
very,
as much as we wish.
very exactly, and so it's just like, look, I got struggles too. I don't talk about them. I don't wear them. I think sometimes I have the mentality that some people, I think, dwell in their victimhood, and like, so they want to tell you that story every time you talk to them. And I was the exact opposite. You never get anything out of me. I wasn't going to tell nothing. So
Right, right.
I think there's a balance.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think when you walk in your truth, and when you live in your truth, that's when you can be your best self, really. And
Mm-hmm.
that's when you really can be a greater inspiration to people, because you can be like, listen, all of that was going on when I was first building the Small Biz Lady brand. I had a marriage that was crumbling, and I had a brand new 1-year-old baby when
Mm-hmm.
I decided to become the Small Biz Lady. And it was hard. It was hard. I worked and tweeted and helped people and answered people's small business questions for 2 years before any brand paid any attention, before any of it made any money.
Oh,
2
wow.
years,
2 years. Amazing.
22 months. Yes. And I tell that story because I'm like, do you love what you do enough to do it for free for 2 years
Mm-hmm.
till it can make money for you with somebody in the background not cheering for you?
Right,
You
right.
do that?
Well, and especially when you're not making money, it's easier to spin into that negative space. Like, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? Blah, 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 blah. It takes so much mental fortitude to be out of the noise and just keep on the path.
Exactly, exactly. But you have to have faith in yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to remember who you are. And then sometimes you have to remember whose you are. And then you can get real clear about what is noise and what isn't.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so for me, I'm always at my spiritual center,
Mm-hmm.
because that's where I got my purpose from.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't let humans turn me around too much. People irritate me, but in
Yeah, yeah,
general, nah, nah, miss me. You can't touch me. I'm on a bigger mission than you could even think about.
yeah. Right, 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 right.
So,
So when you're
yeah,
looking at your
yeah.
business plan and you have it, are you reevaluating that every quarter or how are you like looking at
Oh,
things
yeah.
to keep always ahead?
Well, at this point, I've been looking at things year to year because
Okay.
we had some goals 2 years ago that are, we had goals a year ago. We have things that are coming to fruition right now. We already have plans for 2023, right? So we're already working on first quarter next year,
Right.
right? We're gonna things we have in the pipeline now, but we're a quarter ahead, 2 quarters ahead. Yeah,
Okay.
you have to.
Right. Right.
Just
Right.
like you have to put together your budget in September, October for 2023, you better be putting together your new business plan for next year too,
Yeah.
or sooner. Because depending on what you do, there's always a sales cycle. It always takes time to push new things. So you have to give yourself enough ramp up time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. No, that's
Definitely.
true. And just and staying with it, right? Like you might have this timeline that if it doesn't come to fruition, okay, but is it still a worthy goal? Or if it takes twice as long, it's still
Absolutely.
worth happening.
It is. It is. I mean, I'll be very candid with you. My project with Drexel was supposed to go live last fall, not,
Right. Right. Right.
not
Right.
this fall, last fall, and
Right.
it didn't happen. It was a lot,
Yeah. But you
and
stuck with
so
it. You continued on, and it's like it's still a win, right? It's a win. It's just a win in a different year. But that's the whole thing of just knowing if you're doing the input The input, the input, the input, eventually the output will match.
Absolutely. But I also think too, it's about timing. A
Mm-hmm.
year ago, we weren't ready. We thought we were. We weren't. Based on all the other things that had to happen. No, if it had gone last year, it'd have been a mess.
Nice.
So it didn't feel good at the time. But that's how God's timing works, right? His time, he don't work by the same watch we work by. So we have to recognize that if a deal falls through, it wasn't your deal.
Right.
If it takes longer to close, it's because you might not have been ready for it to close.
Mm-hmm.
You might have thought you were ready. You might have needed that cash flow, but no, you weren't ready.
Mm-hmm.
So so that really had to become my mentality, because there's been so many things that worked on was at the 11th hour, everybody was at the table ready to sign, and then the contract went away. I've experienced that more than one time.
Mm-hmm.
But that was, I believe that that's the Lord saving you from dealing with crazy people usually.
Yeah. No, 100%. You're like in the moment, it feels awful. Then you can look down the road through. Like I always tell myself, like if this didn't go through, my future self is going to be happy. My current self might not be, but my future self is going to be happy. So I just have to lean into my future self and say, hey, this is meant to be, and we're good. Onward and upward.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's how you really have to be. But I think when you're young, it's hard
Mm-hmm.
because you like you were already counting that money in the bank already.
Well,
And then
and
it
it's
went
hard
away.
because you like there's so many headlines, right? Like I have boys and I was telling them the other day, they're like, well, I'm gonna do this drop shipping store, I'm gonna get into crypto, I'm gonna do whatever. And I'm like, honey, that's not your headline. Okay, that's somebody else's headline that you read. Like just understand that that was their story. We got to write your own. Okay.
Right. That sounds exactly like something I told my son. For years, my son was like, Mom, I want to get my own YouTube channel. I want to get my own YouTube channel. Okay, well, what are you going to do on your YouTube channel, Jojo? Oh, well, I'm gonna do video game. I'm gonna show people how to use video games. I said, sweetheart, don't you watch a bunch of people? Don't you watch a bunch of people that do that walkthroughs? I said, I think that market is saturated, buddy. I said, I think you better come up with a new idea. You're already too late on that one, you
Right.
know. And he was
Right.
just like, really, son, you're already too late with that.
Yeah. No, it's a lot harder to break into an industry that's established. It's a lot easier to grow or to start one and say, like, oh, there's just a blank slate. Now I can plug into this and this is where I see a need.
Yeah.
And then
Be a
creating it.
pioneer. Be a pioneer.
Right.
It worked. Yeah, yeah. No, but it's so funny. Kids, I want to be YouTube. Okay. What are you
Yep.
gonna do on YouTube? Tell me about that.
Oh yeah, no, I have little girls that want to be TikTok dancers. I'm like, okay, well, let's work on our rhythm.
Oh, I get the people that want to be influencers. People always want to tell me about how they're gonna be an influencer
Yeah.
on Instagram. And I'm just like, okay. And I'm like, since I actually am an influencer, like a corporate, national spokesperson, I'm always like, that's interesting. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
they don't even ask me about what I do. They want to like get free clothes and stuff, and it's just like, no, you need a real check so you can buy your own clothes. You don't need to wait for somebody to send them to you so you can model them on Instagram for them.
I know.
I mean, no shade, but
Right,
yeah,
right,
no,
right. Like
there's
think
there's
bigger.
lots of ways to influence. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. There's micro influencers, there's nano influencers, there's mega influencers, and then there's celebrity influencers. I said, I'm a mega influencer, which means my brand reaches millions of people every week. And they were
Wow.
like, oh, yeah.
Right. With providing
But like,
value, with like knowledge that people can implement into their own lives, and then it just multiplies into what it creates. I love it.
exactly,
Do
exactly.
you think
Yeah.
you have
So
any more books in you?
yes, actually,
All right.
yes. So I have two books that I've written that are being shopped right now.
Okay.
And I think my next book is going to be How I Became Small Biz Lady. I think I'm finally going to tell my whole story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. I never thought it would be I thought you would have to be older, right, to feel like you were going to write your
Memoir.
biography. But a lot of people have said to me, they said, no, Melinda, no, I think your personal story is very compelling.
Right,
I
right, right,
think
right.
you could tell it in a way that could really inspire people. So
Definitely. We don't need like
that's a
that's the things our
3 year
brain
project.
do to us too, right? We have to like I have to constantly say to myself, is this a story that I'm making up or is this truth? Right? Like, is it really that I can't write this, or is that because I feel like exposed when I write it, or like just really getting into like the deeper piece of it to make sure you're operating from your purest self instead of a protected self.
Well, right. And you've got to make sure that if you're going to tell it, you got to tell all of it, right? And
Right?
you can't, you can't cherry pick different things. But I think that there's a lot of things people don't know about me because I haven't historically shared a lot of my personal story.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's time. I think it's just about time to tell it. So we've
Nice.
got some other things in our pipeline that we're working on, but the How I Became a Brand in Demand, that's a book that will be written for sure.
Ah, I like it. I'm buying that one for sure. I bought this one. I bought the Fix Your Business. I bought it two
Oh,
times. So you must have two editions of this.
I don't have two editions. I have a
No?
workbook and a book.
Oh,
I
okay.
have a workbook and a book.
Nice.
But I'm glad you bought it. I hope it helps you.
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, it's been fun. I got into mountaineering and I've learned so much that I want to share the knowledge. And so I'm just trying to figure out like what's the best way to do that and just having a process to kind of, when some of us have ideas that just they need to be honed down and like mapped out, right? And so having that like bring me back to, oh wait, how is this applicable? Like I can get into la la land really easy. That's not going to help anybody.
Now, how did you get into mountaineering? Like, how did you decide I'm gonna climb the top 7 mountain ranges in the United States? I mean, like, how did you
Yeah,
decide
yeah,
to do
yeah.
that?
So I know, like, I think it's kind of how you got into your small business lady deal. I was in a car accident that should have taken my life and didn't. And so all of a sudden I was faced with this, okay, I'm still here. If I'm still here and if I was died yesterday, would my obituary say all the things I wanted it to say? And it didn't. So I'm like, I need
Mhm.
to hustle. Where did I come up with this idea that I have endless time? Right. Um, and so
Right.
that really like started to bring me into focus. And then my son challenged me to climb Mount Everest during a math assignment. He didn't want to do his math homework. I told him we do hard things. And he's like, well, if we do hard things, why aren't you climbing Mount Everest? And I'm like, you know what? Do your math and we'll talk about it. So I feel like when you allow time to explore and get curious and be like, hey, is this something I could do? Is this something that I'd be excited about? Is this something I could learn from or I could share with others? And so I went to climb Everest. And then a friend of mine told me that the 7 second summits, which are the second highest point on each continent, have not been climbed by a
Mhm.
female before. And I'm like, well, I think it's really important for moms to be seen doing their own thing. Like, and I know some moms
Mhm.
are 100% fulfilled being at home. That is not my personality. So I just have to embrace who I am and say, all right, this is something else I want to do. And it's been a journey, but it's a journey of, resilience, right? And persistence and just understanding the bigger calling and letting the setbacks not define me, but mold me into something better.
But I want to back up this story. So your first climb was Everest?
Actually, I did climb a couple mountains before, but my third mountain was Everest. Yeah,
Okay.
I know. I
If
know. It's like you. You
AKA
said you're going to
over
be
and
the business lady for America, right? Like that's a big goal. That's the equivalent of my
over.
Everest. I'm going to climb a mountain, I'm going to climb Mount Everest.
You're right. You're right. I'm just like you.
Yeah, we're the same,
Same
different arena,
mentality.
same,
Same,
right?
same
Um,
mentality. Yeah.
and for me, like it gave, like if I did something as big as climbing Mount Everest, if I failed, it
Mhm.
was okay, well, you tried to climb Mount Everest, like whatever, right? You could fail at that. Like it felt like even if I failed, I was still winning. And I think a lot of times when I try to set goals, that even this, just the pursuit of the goal is the win. And then whatever
Mhm.
happens is always to my benefit.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's good stuff though. That's good stuff.
It's,
And what an amazing role model you are for your boys.
oh, yeah. They don't always think so because now I'm like, it's when you are doing something alongside your children and they have tasks that they don't want to do, you can relate to them like, hey, I get it. I have tasks I don't want to do either, but guess what? I want the end result. So if I want the end result, I
That's
got to do this thing that I don't want to do, and I might as well do that first so it's out of my way, right?
Mhm.
So I think a lot of times just chasing our own goals allows our kids to do the same thing in parallel with us. Now, do you think, okay, so your son wants to get into computer science.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, so we went on some college visits this summer. He did a coding camp, residential coding camp at Villanova, and
Wow.
then he did a 3-week coding camp at Drexel, and he now has intermediate skills in 4 different coding languages, like just from the work we did this summer.
Isn't that amazing?
So,
That is the
rocking it,
beauty of
yeah.
like society today, is just the access to knowledge if you pursue it. You can learn so much easier than I feel like even 10 years ago.
Oh, 100%, because there's an app for that, right? I mean,
Yeah,
there's too many ways to learn. There's too many ways to learn stuff. You can go to YouTube University. Now you can go to TikTok University to learn stuff. So you don't have an excuse. If you want to grow, there's lots of opportunities out here to do it.
right,
But you have to make the decision. And I think the issue is helping people operate with intention around stuff like that.
right,
Like make goals, but write them down. Because if you write them down, you are far more likely to accomplish them.
right,
Right.
right.
So, I mean, there were a lot of people, friends, colleagues, even some of my clients that were like, tell us why you're going back to graduate school. Like, you don't need to do that. You're a small business lady. I'm like, I know, but I always wanted to do it because I
Sure.
always wanted to teach.
That's
And
awesome.
now I have the credential to do that.
And now
Yeah.
you have your
So
course. I love
it's,
it. It's
I
amazing.
got my courses, I got my online school. Like now I'm like rocking it, you know?
Woohoo! Okay, so
Yeah.
how do people find you? Like give us your handles or what's the best way to get your advice
Oh,
because you
yeah.
have lots of it that you put out.
Oh yeah. So I am Small Biz Lady on all social media handles. I am the Small Biz Lady on TikTok. I'm Melinda Emerson on LinkedIn. If you want more information about my books or my school, head over to smallbizladyuniversity.com. And if you're thinking about going into business and you're not sure, if you really have what it takes to be a boss, go to bossquiz.com. That is my quiz. It will give you lots of information about what kind of entrepreneur type you are and how you can be successful in business.
I love it. Thank you for your pursuit, your passion, and sharing it with all of us because even the tips I read in this book have already like, oh, good point. Oh, good point. There's so much to learn when we reach out and try, right? So thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But it's such a pleasure. Such a pleasure to be
I
with you.
know. I knew I'd like you. I was already warned, so it's perfect.